What is going on, good people of the internet? It is time once again for us to come together as black nerds, as African American nerds, as blerds, whatever you want to call us. We are here once again to talk about whatever we want to talk about when it comes to nerd culture, black culture, or just culture in general. Because right now, culture is very scary. Between the election and the coronavirus, it's a very scary time out here. But we are here, nevertheless, and things have changed a little bit. We took a little bit of a break. We are back, and we are getting it in. So this is a little show we call Blerd Grounds. My name is James Portis. I have my amazing cast with me. We have the woman who has chosen to vacate Seattle and has now moved on to bigger and better things. We have Jasmine. How are you doing this evening?
I'm good. I'm tired. I have a new tattoo.
Ooh!
And, oh yeah, did I show you?
No, you
oh
didn't.
God, it's a bouquet. It's a bouquet. It's got jasmines and rhododendrons on it because, you know, jasmines and also rhododendrons are the Washington state flowers. So I'm going to just drop that in the Discord real fast. Hold on.
All right.
Boom.
Okay.
Anyway, yep. And I'm just chilling.
All right. And then we have the man whose afro is falling down to his neck. We have the man who decided to trade shiny Pokemon before the podcast. Travis, how you doing this evening?
Pretty good with these new shiny Pokemon, man. I'm about to wreck things. Oh.
So I need to start playing Sword and Shield again. It's like there's no post game and it frustrates my soul.
You don't want to run this fade. There's tons of post game.
Man, we'll talk later. We need to do like a dedicated Pokemon episode at some point. Like we like when Sword and Shield dropped, we kind of skated over it, but we didn't do as much as we wanted to do. So we need to go back. All right, and then we have the doctor who continuously like spits out the good gospel. We have Aaron Jones. How you doing this evening?
I'm doing all right. I had a day at home. You know, I had a work from home day today because, you know, the students are blocking the entrances and doing their protesting on campus. So that's fun.
That's fun.
No.
Poor Aaron. All right. And then we have the man who has currently got an amazing Kickstarter campaign going for his book, The Crossing, right now that you can pledge at Kickstarter.com. The editor-in-chief of I Am Black SciFi, the creator of the comic Route 3. We have Robert Jeffrey. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing good. Glad to be on the show. And you know, in the backwoods of Bumblefuck, Georgia. You know, so that's first curse word of the night. But going all in, and 8 o'clock at night. But no, I'm happy to be here. Really happy to be here.
Excellent. Is there anything specific you want to plug besides the Kickstarter? Like anything going on that you want to help promote?
Myself? No, there's. I mean, the crossing is, you know, first and foremost, but, you know, I always direct people to Robert K. Jeffrey, JEFFREY.com to, you know, just check out, you know, what I got, Route 3, Mind to Avenge, the DC Comics work, and just other good treats, you know. So that's probably the first and foremost thing to promote. But yeah, that's me.
That was the first thing I actually saw that you had done, like back when we first had touched base last year, was that you wrote a Jon Stewart story for DC, and
hell yeah,
we connected on an emotional level because Jon Stewart is the greatest Green Lantern, and I have been protesting this for years, and no one will listen to me.
I mean, just say it again.
Jon Stewart is the greatest Green Lantern.
Like why can't we just can Hal just retire, please?
Can I? You know, a certain demographic of folks will lose their shit if that happens.
Ooh. Yes.
And I don't care.
It's okay.
Yeah, like the the whites. No,
the whites.
Just being real. I've never understood why, you know, even before you know, going into the, you know, the workshop and then getting a chance to do Jon Stewart's story, why everybody was beholden to, you know, Hal. And the concept of the Green Lantern Corps is that it's a like universe spanning intergalactic police force, and to have the focus just be on one dude was always a problem with me. I'm a Star Trek head, so it's just like we don't stay on Earth; we go to different places.
Yes.
So that was always kind of frustrating for me. And it's like 50, Earth-based Green Lantern, so I just focus on him. So
exactly.
yeah,
That was boring. Sorry, I said it. He's boring.
Yeah.
I love Jeff Johns to death. He has done so many great things for me, like JSA and Teen Titans. But I still think one of the greatest missteps he ever did was bringing Hal Jordan back into the spotlight. Like, you had Kyle Rayner. You could have put Jon Stewart at the pedestal that he should have been after all those years, and you were like, nope, let's not do that. And I was like, why? Like, but anyway, I'm gonna get off my soapbox because like I'm there too much of the time. Like, I'm already about to be ranting next week when we talk about Black Lightning, because like that next week's finale is gonna have me a mess. But that's not what we're here to talk about this week. But we are here to talk about your series with this brand new book, The Crossing. The idea of like a sort of multi-dimensional story similar to Exiles that touched my heart, because like we talked about before the show, Exiles is something that I've loved since I was a child. I was so happy when they brought it back recently, but then they canceled it and I was mad. But like obviously a lot of people don't know about your work and don't know about this Kickstarter. So, like, if you could sum up in a small amount of words, besides the great video you have on the Kickstarter, if you had to like reel people in a way, what would be the greatest way you could with like, The Crossing?
It's elevator pitch. Always, I've always said is it's Sliders meets Mission Impossible. So if you love the over-the-top action of Mission Impossible and at least the dimension hopping aspects of that that 90s love show, this is a series for you. I'm a big fan of like you said, high adventure, just rapid rapid fire storytelling, and when the story asks for it. And this is something that I've been wanting to do for a while. Just the idea of like parallel worlds has always been very like entertaining to me and just interesting. Just the whole idea of like, what if you didn't go the B route and you decided to go the F route? What would that do? And the same thing for like alternate history and from coming from a comic book background. We grew up on the Marvel What If stories,
Mm-hmm.
and then also the the multiverse of DC Comics, and even within the CW, their universe, the Arrowverse, they just had that that gigantic I think it's like 4 or 5 episodes. I mean, if you want to include the bootleg Black Lightning episode, anyways, I'm not going to go with that. But
You want to come back next week and rant with me, because we could do that.
Oh, I already got like one podcast locked up. I can definitely come back and talk about that. It's a love-hate relationship with that show.
Ooh,
But
okay.
anyways, yeah, being real. But but the same thing with like the crisis. That has always just been it's just been very interesting for me. So, one of the things I love about indie comics is that you can tell any stories that you want. And you don't have to worry about, any there aren't any restrictions. So we were just like, let's just go, big or go home. So that's kind of The Crossing in a nutshell.
Okay. Now, like for anybody who like needs to hear more, like the protagonist of this book, like the idea of trying to rectify past mistakes by jumping to different worlds seemed like a very interesting concept to me. So
Yeah.
if you like, when it comes to just this pitch in general, David Kincaid as a protagonist, is he someone that people can look to as a hero? Is it more of like a redemption story? How could you convey it for folks that want to like get on board with this series and try to help back it?
Yeah, it's you. I think you hit the nail on the head. It's a redemption story for him, because we find that within his past, things are a bit complicated, and I like writing, I guess, quote unquote, complicated people, and this dude is probably one of the most like complicated characters that I've written, within the past 15 years that I've been doing this, and that just makes it fun for me. But one of the things that there's a catalyst within the story where he just kind of, something hits him and he's just like, I gotta do the right thing in this case. And in this case, it takes the form of him, bringing his daughter on like a world, hopping, I guess chase across the multiverse. But this guy is not as peachy clean as a lot of people, might expect. He's one of the most preeminent, people within the field of crossing, which in our universe, in their universe is just, traveling across these, the multiverses. But he brings a lot of baggage in tow, and but at the end of the day, he doesn't give a fuck. He's the smartest dude. Yeah, like you say, he's the smartest dude in the room, and he will let you know. And I feel that, definitely in sci-fi and speculative fiction, like sometimes often we don't get a chance to see, people who look like me or who look like y'all, being able to be as confident to say like, oh no, I am smarter than you, and just accept that. So let's just move on. So that's who, James is. So you can either, it definitely, it might rub people the wrong way as far as, how he kind of, comes at things. But I'll tell you this, he's been a joy to write. So,
okay.
But this is, at the end of the day, this is something that he's doing for his daughter. And, maybe it's not the right thing to do, but he's just like, fuck it, I'll just go ahead and do it. So.
Okay. Before I let one of my other compatriots jump in and ask some questions, I do want to get some more background on you when it comes to what got you into comics and what made you want to be so in depth with sci-fi. Because we see you writing this Jon Stewart story, we see you being in multiple different projects. I've seen from you being interested in sci-fi and fantasy. What made you come up from comics into this?
Yeah, well, as far as with comics. My mom used to buy them from these places called drugstores.
Oh.
In Chicago, because at least on my side of town, we didn't have, the LCS or the local comic book stores. So, it started off with, her picking up the Amazing Spider-Man, Archie Digest, Disney, Digest comic books. And then I had a cousin who was in the Coast Guard, and he basically opened up his collection to me, and so that's how I read, Jim Lee Claremont's, X-Men #1, which I thought was going to pay my way through college. That didn't happen. Speculation and all that,
oh, yes.
But and so that's kind of where everything popped off, and then this little thing called Milestone Media, actually this huge thing, Milestone Media, that was probably the most that was influential in me getting into comic books. Everybody will sit back and say Watchmen was that seminal work, or the Dark Knight Returns was that big word for them. But for me, it was Static and Icon, Hardware, Blood Syndicate. Those were the books that helped me to realize that I could have a career writing these stories, which I love to read. So and specifically with sci-fi, I think I mentioned this off air, but I'm a huge Star Trek fan, and Star Trek was always the example of once humanity realized we need to stop fucking up, this is what we can do. This is these are the the lengths to just where we can reach. So there was something that was very kind of inspirational for me, and just seeing black and brown people actually represented in the future was pretty huge. So, when it comes to storytelling with science fiction, I feel that genre, excuse me, apparently I'm getting choked up about this, but that genre is very, we can exist in the future. I don't care what anybody says. We can exist in these fantastical stories that act as allegories for, what we're dealing with nowadays. And, add a little bit of, spaceship laser fire and, all of that stuff to it. It can be fun at the same time. So I don't know, it might just be more of kind of the hope and fantastical aspects of sci-fi, which kind of have me. That's kind of where I keep navigating to when it comes to my writing.
Okay. Guys, was there any questions that you specifically wanted to ask this gentleman?
Yeah. After writing Jon Stewart, the master builder of the Green Lantern Corps, I gotta ask, being in the industry and all, how do you feel about Simon Baz?
He, I like Baz. I like Baz, and I especially like Jessica Cruz. But Baz, I became more familiar with him because when I got accepted into the workshop, I just went out and bought all of those Rebirth books, like a crackhead, like a comic crackhead, and one of the series was the Green Lantern story, where it was focused on Jessica Cruz and Simon Baz, I guess, being the Earth-based lanterns, and that's where I was able to learn a bit more about him. One thing that you can say about each of the, I guess, human lanterns is that no one person is the same. Nobody is a cookie cutter representation of the other, and Baz is definitely representative of that. I don't necessarily have an issue with him. I felt he was a solid character, and him working with Jessica Cruz was actually really cool to watch, because he was, I think, at least during that run, very instrumental in helping her to kind of get past her, helping her to get past her past traumas. He was, so that's kind of why I think I appreciated him a bit more, because Jessica Cruz is also a personal favorite.
Okay. Travis, you got anything else you want to throw out?
Shoot, what was your inspiration for? Because I'm looking at the Crossing Kickstarter here. I'm curious on what the inspiration was for Jun Patton.
So, one of the things when the story, I created the story with another writer named John McGuire. He's a very talented comic writer and novelist. But one of the things that we realize is that going into the future, they were going to first and foremost, we wanted a scientist who had never crossed, and that was going to be really big. Like, she is an expert in her field. She is very young, but we wanted to have somebody that wasn't as, I guess you could say, seasoned when it came to actually crossing. The other thing, as far as her ethnicity, she is mixed, African Chinese ancestry, because with how far forward we are into the future, we wanted to reflect the world as statistically as it's going right now. So we wanted to specifically have a biracial character in there, which reflected this this change. My biggest goal with, and it was funny because a while back somebody told me, like, hey, do you have an agenda to put women of color in your books? And I said yes. So next question.
Excellent.
Yes.
Easy.
Yeah.
That's an
Yes.
easy question.
Is the easy question, yeah. And I was like, kick rocks after that. So no, but she, she's the one that we're kind of seeing, the kind of, these new eyes, these new fresh eyes. She's been trying to prove to her father, who is, essentially, if you've ever seen the movie The Right Stuff, he is a part of that generation of crossers, and he was one of the first. And because of traumas that he suffered, in the past, he has been like, I just want you to hit the books. I just want you to be, working at the university, being the expert on this world, but I don't want you actually traveling. And that's been something that she's been pushing back against. And actually, in the first issue, she actually kind of throws her father under the bus, to get this opportunity, this once in a lifetime opportunity. But yeah, she's another fun one to write. but yeah, that's kind of June patent.
Okay, cool.
All right, Jasmine, Aaron, do you want to jump in this? Aaron, did you die?
No, I'm not. I'm alive. I was going to see if Jasmine wants to jump in first.
Oh, no. I do have questions, but it would be taking away from the topic that we're on now. So go ahead if you have it.
I guess with respect to just your process with getting crossing started, how did you get connected with, or can you tell me a little bit about the impetus of your connection with 133 Art, and tell us a little bit about that as well?
Yeah. So, like I said, John and I had this idea going. It's been a few years now, and our goal was to find a publisher who just who wanted to publish the story, but who wanted to who actually enjoyed the story or the pitch that we were bringing. And when I got out of the workshop, might have been like 2018, 133 Art, Jason Reeves of 133 Art approached me about doing work with the company, and I'd been a fan of their stuff going back for a while, with things like One Nation, Kid Carvers, and a few other series. And so it started off with me being hired to write Retcon, which is the Afrofuturistic time travel series that we actually successfully kickstarted, and then also coming on board to be the series writer for Changa and the Jade Obelisk, which is an African fantasy adventure, adapted from a novel of the same name by Milton Davis. So I think once I did those two gigs, started working with them, Jason kind of opened the floor to say, hey, do you have any original ideas? And John and I were like, yes, behind door number one. So that's so it built up. I built, I guess, a relationship, or we both built a relationship with the actual client work. And then once he heard the pitch for Crossing, it was a done deal. And bringing on also Sean Hill, the artist extraordinaire, I think it was kind of sealed the deal. But yeah, it kind of, I'm always grateful to, Jason and Kimmy, his wife. They both run 133 Art for like actively just kind of, approaching me to say, hey, what do you want to do? And, I think we've actually done some really good stuff. So, but yeah, that's kind of how we linked up with the Crossing.
That's pretty dope.
That's super cool.
That's actually really freaking cool. I've been looking at 133 Art all day, and just the idea of like putting more books of color out there just blew me away, because it feels as if it's non-existent other than things that are going on in Image. Like the idea of a kid's book like Kid Carvers just floored me. So to see you guys coming together and making this kind of product is just amazing to me.
Thanks. Yeah, like I said, I've been a fan, and for a while, for like a very long time, of theirs. And Jason and, like I said, 133 Art is the real deal. They, I think Retcon was their first Kickstarter, and they were successful with that. But see, a lot of that, I think, success with these Kickstarters has been built on the professionalism and the content that they were producing before, and also they don't treat their creators like crap. That's a huge thing. That's a very huge thing. So that's why they've lasted while some people haven't. So that's but like fan first and foremost, and but it's been a very good working relationship. He's actually tossed in a really good suggestions about the Crossing, like things that we were like, okay, we definitely need to go this route versus this route. So it's just helped the story to grow. So.
All right. Jasmine, you said you wanted to turn the conversation a little bit. What do you got planned over there?
He actually answered my question, so that's terrible. I mean, that's great, but it's now I'm left floundering.
Sorry.
No, you're good. That's perfect. Could you go over I Am Black Sci-Fi? Because I'm very interested in this site.
Yeah.
Looks a lot like it looks a lot like On Common Ground, just for Black Sci-Fi.
Okay. Oh yeah. Cool. There's definitely kind of what do they say in Ghostbusters, crossing of the streams. At least with the coverage of certain things, but the website was started. Oh god, it's been. I'm a writer. I'm not good with math. It's been a while. So it's been a while. By Maurice Waters up in Philly, and it's a website that focuses on the contributions of people of African descent, no matter where we are, to the the worlds of STEM, speculative fiction, fantasy, geek culture, and just whatever. We highlight the fact that we exist when it comes to this stuff, and and just our fandom and just our love for these various fields. And we have a really talented group of writers, and we even have actually a television show based out of Philly, based out of Philadelphia, and that's been going on for like maybe the past couple of years. And you can watch the shows, like we'll do stuff like going, a lot of con coverage, and showing of indie Black films, like sci-fi based films, and that this year we will be hosting our first convention, the Black Sci-Fi Con up in Philadelphia. So yeah, it's the website has grown with year after year after year. I came on board as editor-in-chief. I can remember this much at least, maybe like 7-8 years ago. And before that, I was a writer. So just being able to have a hand in just growing the brand has been pretty huge. Because growing up, we didn't have stuff like this. I'm just being. I think I might be dating myself, but so for me, there's a huge importance in having a website like sci-fi.com, to just show the fact that, we do this geek stuff too, so.
All right.
I know I'm like one of the older people here, so don't feel.
Yes,
Don't feel
doctor.
I'm the
We
youngest.
yes, doctor. We know you're old.
So back in my day, we
Lest
only
we
had
forget.
horses and carriages, and I was good. I don't know.
Oh my gosh. But,
Remember rotary phones?
oh my
Rotary
god! Don't even.
What about when pop locking started? I had to save a community.
You're old.
I remember when Pop Lock and Drop It was the hot thing. We had to add the drop to it.
The drop to it.
Oh.
Travis, you remember it too. That's why you say it. Oh.
I wasn't. I did the whole like you're a jerk thing with the bright colors and tight pants.
Ooh.
Wow.
That was the one dance I just couldn't
Do you
do. 'cause
have
it made no
photos?
fucking- do you have photos?
I do have
You have
photos.
no
I
idea what
do
you guys are
have
talking
photos.
about.
Oh my gosh! But no, since we've done covered about everything, I wanted to specifically get your thoughts on just like what we seem to be having a trend whenever we have a black creator on is that the lack of like black voices that we see that are prominent in comic culture currently. We see like we already started to joke the white dominant voice in comics, and I wanted to get your thoughts on that the current landscape of comic books and what we can do to change it.
So, let me pull up my soapbox now. Let me stop.
Yes, do it.
I feel that on the indie front, creators of color are just specifically black creators are killing it. Like we just are. I see it at shows. I see it online. I've been doing this for it's 10 plus years now, and I've seen the growth, and specifically within our industry. And one of the things I do notice is that when you do exceptionally well with the indies, and this is with anybody, It just, that's when the larger companies come a knocking. And is that a good thing? I don't know. We spoke about Charlemagne earlier. I kind of hate the fact that he got a writing gig, but there are a bunch of at Marvel, but there are a bunch of other writers. I'm not even including myself. I'm thinking about other writers who have been in this game for a hot minute, like just doing, and actually to have done work for companies like Boom Studios, Dark Horse, Image, but they can't get that writing credit because it's not a named thing. So I do feel that if you blow up in a certain way within within the indie sector, there's this idea that you will bring followers with you, to the big two specifically, and that's one way to get in. But I do feel that there needs to be more of us. There needs to be more, and I think that definitely you see a lot of us at that level, like you said, Chuck Brown, David Walker, Vita Ayala. She's another DC Comics Workshop graduate. I said Brandon Thomas with Excellence. I'm specifically looking. I'm giving writers now. Roxanne Gay, N.K. Jemisin on Far Sector. I want that to be the norm. I want us to not just, I don't want them to just bring us in for the black books. I'm just being real. Just open it up just as much as you can allow people of other persuasions to write us. Let us write them. That's kind of how I feel about it, because the doors are opening. I do feel, but I just need to be, there needs to be a bit more equality, when it comes to specifically with the writing, but yeah, this is, maybe this is just my indie tirade, but those are my feelings about it. I want there to be a little bit more equality when it comes to like the big name series. I want there to be somebody outside of a straight white man writing an X-Men series.
Ooh,
and I know Vita, Vita is doing a series. She has done, she's done work, but I'm like, and Hickman is killing it. But imagine if you had somebody, from a disenfranchised background writing the wokest X-Men that I've ever read. That would, and that might be too scary for some people, but I don't know. It's that's just my perspective, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to have done the work with John Stewart. Heck, I was able to throw in Black Lives Matter into the story, something I never thought I would ever see in a mainstream book. But I just, I just want it to be balanced a bit more. I want to see more of my brothers and sisters, getting opportunities, to do that. But if you want to see that, pick up these indie books. Like, we are killing it. On that level too.
You are, and you brought up Charlemagne and his section of Marvel Voices, and I wanted to come back to that because it circles back to my other question, which is like say what you will about the quality of the writing, because I do agree with you, but he raises a point with the fact of, specifically at Marvel and DC, the lack of black titles, the lack of of focus on black characters. People forget that Blue Marvel exists. Monica Rambeau is non-existent and be constantly being depowered. Like,
right.
What is your take on the lack of representation, just from a character standpoint, not even from a creator standpoint?
I'll use an example. It hurt my heart when Ironheart was canceled. I love the fact that Eve Ewing is working on Champions now, but I've always, as of now, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think Black Panther is the only Black
Panther,
character, that has had a series that has run for, multiple years.
Mm-hmm.
And some people say that's just a reflection of sales, that's just a reflection of the industry. But I could name other series that are still going on, which maybe should get the same treatment. You know, I want to see. I do want to see more series kind of featuring us. You know, like you said, and I understand the point that he made with Blue Marvel. It does get frustrating to not see us get a 25 issue run, you know, like Colts has gotten, or with or like a multiple year run. So you know, maybe that'll change. You know, I'm actually happy to see that you know, Far Sector is kicking butt. You know, is one of the best, you know, series out there. And maybe the motto is going forward is just mini series. You know, just, you know, 12 issues here and then 12 issues there or something. I don't know, but it does get frustrating to, you know, kind of see a lack of us, you know, on a regular basis at, you know, on Wednesdays, you know, when you go and pick up your, you know, your comics on a regular basis. So.
And it's to your point too about like our perspectives are valid and they have so much depth and such relatability. Even beyond just our community, there's relatability to a lot of other marginalized backgrounds and folks, and we're just not there. But you know, Flash gets to, you know, create different forces, and we have to, you know, read that nonsense, and you know, and it makes no sense whatsoever, and it's haphazardly put together, and you know, deep, compelling, relatable stories are being ignored. You know, that's where I get frustrated.
Yeah, you know, one of the things I always try to tell people is just try something new. You know, just like you don't, like if you go to the store and let's say you're a DC head and you're a Marvel head, you know, pick up Excellence, pick up Bitterroot, you know, pick up Bingo, pick up, you know, there's a host of things, you know, I can toss out there, and just try something different. You know, that's why I love comics as a medium, because you're not just stuck writing stories about heroes punching villains through like 5 buildings and then like the worst collateral damage to whatever. So I'm sorry. I'm having flashbacks. But you don't have to just stick with that. And even if you want to stick with that, there are other examples of that where, you know, those tropes are like subverted or they're looked at differently, or you might just get a hero. Like one of my favorite books at Marvel was The Ultimates 2.
Thank you.
Yes, like Al Ewing. I never mind. Maybe I shouldn't record that. Al Ewing writes a very good, very awesome Black Panther, and I'll just say that. But that team in general, America Chavez, Blue Marvel, Black Panther, Monica Rambeau, who else am I missing? Captain Marvel, yeah, Carol Danvers, and then I guess Galactus at a certain point.
Yep.
But, yeah, like that. See, when I want to see us reflected in these stories, I don't want us to always just be saving the block. I want us to be saving worlds. And the thing that stood out about that series was that that's what they were doing. They weren't like, they were like, man, the street gang down the street is selling green crack to the children. What y'all gonna do? I'm just like, well, we got
but
space.
He's right, though, Aaron. He's right.
I'm just,
He's 100% right.
I'm just being real. Like, why can't nobody come and help Black Lightning in his last episode? Well, anyway.
Bro, same! You connected the universe, but nobody is here.
They said,
where is Freeland for the Markovians to constantly invade it?
Exactly.
Like, where is the government? Like, I don't understand.
They said, fuck Freeland. Anyways,
they did!
They did, and I think they were saying it in the last episode. But anyways, the thing that stood out about the Ultimates is that they were the team that you went to solve the really big problems, and I loved it, and I just loved it, and that's what I want to kind of see, you know, stories would feature us, you know, just, you know, that I want that to be done. Like there are whole parts of the second season of Discovery that kind of tap into that. Altered Carbon is a really good example of that.
Yes.
I wrote a prose story for an anthology called Dark Universe, and it's essentially Star Wars with Black people.
Finally.
And and I have a story in there which just focuses on three sisters caught up in the middle of like a intergalactic war, and it gets crazy. But that's kind of where my mind goes. It's just like we don't always have to be saving the block. I think Brandon Thomas said that when he was writing for Noble for Lion Forge. Like his story was a globe-trotting, action adventure with I think a power couple with I think it's David Noble and Astrid Noble, and she's like jumping out of planes and just taking people out and just killing the game. But they weren't just, once again, saving the block. So I just want us to just go as big and as hard as Star Wars, and they can't even get that right, when it comes to
Speak on it.
Like,
you should go back and listen to our Star Wars episode we did at the beginning of the year, because I spent like 20 minutes just ranting about how they did Finn wrong.
I missed out on that one.
I got hopes for the High Republic, but they can't even let like two black people exist in the writers' room for that shit before they lose their minds.
Hey, Daniel Jose Older's there. I'm like, there's progress.
Yeah, exactly. They said color? No. Color.
Also,
like they lost it.
Aliens. They're aliens.
You have no
there's,
idea.
There's no more than two black people on one side of the galaxy at any given time.
Hey, man. But no, you have no idea how vindicating it is knowing that someone else knows what Ultimates 2 is, because like I've been saying hashtag bring back Ultimates on our other show, Panel to Panel, for years now, and no one will listen to me.
Yeah, we did a review for it on Black Sci-Fi on our website, and I love that series. Like I love the heck out of that series, and Al Ewing is a very talented writer. Like he's that dude. As far as a Marvel suggestion, Ironheart, that, and there are a couple of other ones, but but that's kind of my perspective when it comes to these stories. All
right. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Jeffrey, for coming in and hanging out with us on this episode of Blerd Grounds. We really appreciate it that you have made some time to hang out with us, and maybe even next week for Black Lightning. That'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, not a problem. Who is Mr. Jeffrey? My name is Robert.
Oh my god!
Oh my god!
I was like, that's like when I go to McDonald's and they say, "Sir," I'm like, "No." I appreciate y'all having me on, and I had a good time, and y'all let me rant about stuff, so that was cool. So thank you.
No problem.
That's all we do here.
Yeah, that's all we do. Like, seriously. Please make sure you check out the description of this episode. We will have his Kickstarter linked like down there for you, so you can check out The Crossing, and we'll have some of the links for some of his other content for you folks to check out. You can back the progress. I cannot talk. The project right now. It is late. It is almost midnight here, but I am tired. But you can check out the project. We will have it linked in the description for you folks. I believe it's 18 more days on the project.
Yeah, we have 18 more days.
Okay, so tomorrow when it drops, it'll be 17. But you can check out the project, help back it. I backed it. I'm really excited for this project. It looks really cool.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yo, yeah, I'm excited for this. Normally I don't really mess with Kickstarter unless it's like a Joe Glass or a David F. Walker thing. But I was like, this looks really good. I'm like, yeah, I'll mess with this. Like the hate, it looks amazing. That's why I'm like, yes.
That's what's up. Thank you, man. Thanks. And can I give a quick shout out?
We need more good black dads in comics.
Yes.
You said black deaf?
Dads, I think he said.
Oh, dads. Okay. I was like, dad.
I'm like, wait, we killing ourselves? What?
No, dads. Well, this is a shameless plug, but if you want that, Route 3. You got there's
Travis
a really good
was actually
example.
talking about that before the show. He wants to review it for the website, so we might have to get with you about that.
Yeah, most definitely. But yeah, he's that's something major that I put into my stories. But like I said, I wanted to give a brief shout out just a quick shout out to the team. Like I said, John Robert McGuire, co-writer Sean Hill, the artist Matteo Illuminati. He's going to be doing the covers, and Loris is our letterer, and our colorist is I don't want to mispronounce his name because I like to be good about that. or do good. But his name is Sunil Gagre. I think it's Gagre. But yeah, that's and 133 Art. Jason and Kenny, like it's a team effort. Putting this whole thing together. So I wanted to just say they're all talented as heck, and it's a blessing to be working with them.
Most def. All right. Thank you so much once again for coming on to the show. Don't forget, folks, that you can listen to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, YouTube. We're finally on iHeartRadio, and I recently applied for us to be on Pandora, so that'll be a thing soon. But I'm just blessed that iHeartRadio finally got back to me because I was getting frustrated. So thank you, iHeartRadio, for finally answering my email. You can follow this podcast on Twitter and Instagram at Blerd Grounds. You can check out the website On Comics Ground on Twitter and Instagram at On Comics Ground. And check out the website every weekday where we have brand new reviews, previews, and solicitations for you good people. All of the staff write and review stuff on the website that you can listen to. Well, not listen to. You can listen to the podcast right now, but you can check out all their work right now on the website. You can make sure that you check out the Kickstarter for The Crossing on Kickstarter. We'll have those links below. And we will catch you folks next time. But before we go, Travis, what is your closing statement for this episode of Blerd Grounds?
Read Route 3.
That's all you got?
Read The Crossing. We just hey. We need support for Black fathers in comics.
You right?
Don't get that in very much media.
Wow, you were cutting out over there, but like you
ass.
Your message is conveyed, sir. Jasmine, what is your closing statement? Because he's cutting out like a grated cheese.
Okay.
Back the Crossing. Sorry. Back the Crossing. We need more of this.
Oh, most def.
We need. Oh man, we need so much more of this.
Yes. Dr. Jones, would you like to give a closing statement?
Absolutely. Support Black creators. Back this Kickstarter. Get Route 3. Go on his website. Support us. Do all the things.
Do all the things. All right. And then Mr. Jeffrey.
Am I not cutting out anymore?
No, you are not cutting out anymore.
Oh, I was going to say, buy The Crossing, buy Route 3, and support more Black fathers in media. We don't get much of that.
Most def. You are right about that. Oh, my God. And then Mr. Jeffrey, would you like to give a closing statement for this episode? And I'm putting you on the spot.
Robert.
On blast. Thanks again, for this, but yeah, just try something different. Just try something different. It does, and then support. First support The Crossing, and then pick up another comic that you don't normally read. That would be kind of outside your purview, and you might be happy. So.
Most def. My closing statement is always, like as I say on panel to panel all the time, but it is emphasized more here. Contribute to your local comic book shop. Pre-order your books because pre-ordering matters always, and check out Kickstarter because there are amazing projects like The Crossing. You see all these people of color trying to put out books that matter. So check out these books and help back them because they will not get made without your support. So help them out. All right, folks, we'll catch you right here on next week. Where originally the plan was to have a Riri Williams spotlight. We'll have to push that till the following week because I forgot that the season finale of Black Lightning was next week. So we're gonna have to have a talk. And apparently, Mr. Jeffrey wants to come back for that. So that might be an interesting episode. So we will catch you folks next week. Peace out.